over to you, Madam Mayor, just to welcome people to the meeting. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 5th virtual meeting of the Council. I should really be saying at this point, it's been a pleasure and honour to have chaired the Council meeting for the past year, but instead it has been 2 years through the pandemic, which makes it a greater honour. I'd like to thank all the staff who helped me along the way. Thank you. And all the councillors who have made these meetings a pleasure to chair. Thank you. Since our last meeting, infection rates continue to fall nationally, and here in Hyndburn, and the vaccination is rolling out at a pace. Please be patient and continue to follow the restrictions as they are gradually lifted. I'll continue to chair this meeting tonight, but will now hand over to Mr. David Wellesby, Chief Executive of the Council, who will deal with the details and procedures.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I ask Jane Ellis, please, to conduct the roll call and for the councillors to introduce yourselves by name and the ward that you represent. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Firstly, the Worshipful the Mayor, Councillor June Harrison.
Councillor June Harrison of the Barnfield ward.
Thank you. Councillor Judith Addison.
Councillor Judith Addison, Emmanuel Ward, Oswald Twistle.
Thank you. Councillor Josh Allen.
Councillor Josh Allen, Emmanuel Ward, Oswald Twistle.
Thank you. Councillor Mohammed Ayub.
Councillor Mohammed Ayub, Central Ward, Accrington.
Thank you. Councillor Nurdad Aziz.
Councillor Nurdad Aziz, Netherton Ward in Great Harwood.
Thank you. Councillor Jean Battle.
Councillor Jean Battle, Church.
Councillor Stephen Button.
Councillor Stephen Button, Alton Ward.
Councillor Andrew Clegg.
Councillor Andrew Clegg, Milnshaw Ward, Accrington.
Thank you. Councillor Lorraine Cox.
Councillor Lorraine Cox, Church.
Councillor Paul Cox.
Councillor Paul Cox, Milnshaw Ward, Accrington.
Thank you. Councillor Bunsif Dad.
Councillor Munsif Dad, Spring Hill Ward, Accrington.
Thank you. Councillor Stuart Eves.
Councillor Stuart Eves, St Andrews Ward, Oswald Twistle.
Thank you. Councillor Diane Fielding.
Councillor Diane Fielding, Spring Hill Ward, Accrington.
Thank you. Councillor Melissa Fisher.
Councillor Melissa Fisher, representing Clayton Limors. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Glenn Harrison.
Councillor Glenn Harrison, St Oswald's Ward in Oswald Twistle.
Thank you. Councillor Marlene Howarth.
Councillor Marlene Howarth, representing St Oswald's Ward in Oswald Twistle.
Thank you. Councillor Eamon Higgins.
Councillor Eamon Higgins, representing Huncourt Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Terry Hearn.
Councillor Terry Hearn, for Baxenden.
Thank you. Councillor Abdul Khan.
Councillor Abdul Khan, representing Central Ward in Accrington.
Thank you. Councillor Chris Knight.
Hello, it's Chris Knight here, representing the St Oswald's Ward in Oswald Twistle.
Thank you. Councillor Patrick McGinley.
A very good evening to any of the members of the public listening tonight. Councillor Patrick McGinley, Hyndburn Independent Conservatives for Overton in Great Harwood.
Thank you. Councillor Michael Miller.
Councillor Michael Miller, representing Rishton Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Jenny Molyneux.
Councillor Jenny Molyneux, representing Overton Ward in Great Harwood.
Thank you. Councillor Tim O'Kane.
Councillor Tim O'Kane, Clayton Moors Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Dave Parkins.
Good evening, everyone in Hyndburn. It's Councillor Dave Parkins, representing the Huncourt Ward. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Bernadette Parkinson.
Councillor Bernadette Parkinson, representing Everton Ward of Great Harwood.
Thank you. Councillor Miles Parkinson.
Councillor Miles Parkinson, representing Altham Ward.
Thank you. Councillor Joyce Plummer.
Good evening, Councillor Joyce Plummer, representing Peel Ward in Accrington.
Thank you. Councillor Kath Pratt.
Good evening, Kath Pratt, representing Baxenden Ward.
Thank you. I believe we have apologies from Councillor Scales. Can I just check we don't have Councillor Scales? Okay. Councillor Paddy Short.
Councillor Paddy Short, representing Peel Ward, Accrington.
Thank you. And finally, Councillor Kate Walsh.
Councillor Kate Walsh, representing Rishton Ward.
Thank you. That's the end of the roll call, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We've done the apologies while we did that, didn't we? Declarations in interest of dispensation. Are there any declarations of interest or dispensations? All councillors have already been granted a general dispensation to speak and vote in respect of the allowance given to members, which will be required in respect of agenda item number 7.
Madam Mayor, we have Councillor Judith Addison indicating. Judith, would you like to speak, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to declare 2 personal interests, please. One, in minute 99 of the Cabinet 13th of January, the lease of Mercer House to Hyndburn and Ribble Valley CBS. I'm an independent board trustee with that organisation. And then in the notices of motion, number 6, the NJC pay claim, I'm a Unison retired member. Thank you.
Yes, announcements. National Day of Reflection. Early this week, we reached this sobering milestone of 1 year since the first lockdown. This was followed by a National Day of Reflection led by Charity Mary Kerr, which allowed us to reflect on our collective loss. I hope that you were able to make this event in your own personal ways. Hyndburn Hub, for those people who continue to struggle with the impact of the pandemic, there is still support available through the Hyndburn Hub. Please reach out to them if you need support and essential supplies, or if you just need advice or someone to talk to. The staff and volunteers are doing a great job and are there to help. I'd just like to thank finally the key workers. The final thanks from me to the NHS, social care, education, key workers, council staff and volunteers who are working hard in the difficult times. Are there any comments from the leader, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It is that time of year where the elections are coming in May, and it's to thank those councillors who are standing for re-election, even though they have received an extra year this year due to the pandemic, because of course elections were cancelled back in 2020. But it's also to note those councillors who are not standing for re-election and are standing down from the council. And of course, we have Jeff Scales, who has done 1 term, and Jeff has played an important role in Rishton, especially with his Piggy Park and all the other voluntary work he does. And I know he's well respected in Rishton, and I'm sure he'll probably come back in future years when he has the time away from his family to dedicate it to the role of being a councillor for Rishton. But of course, we have a long-serving councillor who's standing down, and that's Jean Battle, who goes back to the days of when the names of councillors were known throughout the borough. And of course, Jean, going back over many decades, has served the borough in many capacities. And of course, being mayor and with her consort, Les, cycling back from Parliament, raising money in their mayoral year and doing many things. And of course, in the mayoral parlour, we go down the photographs and we see the pictures of Jean, then many years ago, sporting her hairdo at that time. But of course, Jean has done much work, not just in church, but across the borough. She was leader of the group at one time, and of course has dedicated many decades to service, not just in church, but other wards across the borough. So I leave it at that. I believe, Madam Mayor, Lorraine Cox would like to say a few words, being a ward councillor.
Thank you, Miles. I would just like to say thank you, Councillor Jean Battle. It's been an honour to work alongside someone with so much inspiration for the ward they represent. Sorry, I get emotional. Which I feel has been passed down to myself. I have enjoyed all the conversations whilst I walk in the streets of church. Jean has never given up and never will do to keep the township of Church at every opportunity on the map. Always requesting and lobbying at every opportunity for the town and people of Church. Together we re-established Church Resident Association with resident numbers of 25 to 30 attending year on year. Jean never gets to say. She's always voted in unanimously for the chair by the residents of Church if she wanted the position or not. Christmas in Church will not be the same. Again, working together, we got the church switch on from 6 people to our last one, around 80, which I feel was a great achievement. Alongside a new development in Church and also an existing park refurbished, from community walkabouts, litter picks and walkabouts with the police and campaigning, Jean has always been there. There has never been a dull moment in Church, and I'm sure Jean will agree on that one. Our last achievement started as the cabinet member with Jean started with the cabinet member for Housing and Regeneration Project Phoenix on Blackburn Road, which with now being the cabinet member for Housing and Regeneration, I had the pleasure of ringing Jean to inform her it was now set to be completed, closing the loop on a project of nearly 16 years. I could go on, but what can I say? You are a true friend and a sincere councillor. You will be missed.
Thank you for that. Anyone else like to speak? Well, Jean, are you coming in? Jean, are you coming in?
I'm sorry about that. This is the last council that I am attending, and I was just thinking back to my first ever council meeting, which was 1990. Now, cast your mind back, what happened in 1990? Council tax was introduced. I had the shock of my life when I went to the council because the balcony above was full of protesters, and halfway through the meeting we had to stop it because they tore up all the council tax papers they received and threw them at us. And there was crowds outside the council chamber as well. It was a baptism of fire, I should say. And like Lorraine said, over the years we have fought as a council to get better housing in Hyndburn, and we were successful after many years working with the district councils in East Lancashire to get the new generation housing. And it's evident on Blackburn Road when you go and have a look. And like Lorraine said, fortunate to get the little bit that we're missing finished. I've enjoyed my time. I still get involved with the community, which I'm still involved with for years and years on end. And I'll still be here probably, not till I'm 80, but I'm just before then. The only disappointment I have is that I never got to get anything done with Hargreaves Warehouse. Since 1990, I have pestered. The owner was in Hong Kong, now it's somewhere else, and it's gradually falling down bit by bit. So eventually, whoever takes over in my role as a councillor for Church, they may succeed in getting it sorted. Thank you again, all of you, and I might see you around.
Kate, Madam Mayor is calling you to speak.
Oh, thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to speak a little bit about Jeff, Councillor Scales, who's obviously not here tonight, and I will have that. I will have this conversation privately with him. I think Jeff knows how much he means to me. I wouldn't be here today without Jeff asking me to run as a councillor. He's done so much for Rishton, not just as a councillor, but previous to this through his community work. And I know that he'll continue to do that community work. He'll continue to work for the prospects, not work for them, volunteer for them. He'll continue to do the good work that he does at the Piggy Park. He'll continue on at the Rishton Festival Committee. So I just wanted to thank Jeff, because I think everyone here will have a person that you see as the sort of parent within politics, and Jeff of these last 2-3 years has really been my political father is the word I'm looking for. So thank you to Jeff.
Apologies, councillors. We're just changing the Mayor's headset. We had some comments that you were finding it difficult to pick up her voice on the microphone, so we're just going through that at the moment. If we can take 2 then very quick contributions, if you please, from Michael Miller and from Dave Parkins. Michael Miller first, please.
Thank you.
I reiterate what Kate says. Jeff's been an excellent advocate for Rishton, and he's performed admirably over the years that I've known him. He's really engaging, he works well in the community, and he will be sadly missed. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And we had Dave Parkins indicating. Dave, do you still want to come in?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Wellesby, Madam Mayor. It's just an honourable tribute to Jean. If she remembers rightly, we fought year after year after year and succeeded in getting a gate on the King's Highway. Without her help when she was on the county council, and without the residents' help up at Windy Harbour Farm and Mary Lane Farm and all the officers involved and what have you. And thank you to Ibstocks, who own the quarry at Rakehead at Uncourt there. They put the money to £8,000 to get the gate on and the actual security pad and everything. So that's my biggest achievement, I think, at the moment. But thanks very much, Jean, for all your help. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else waiting?
No one else waiting, Madam Mayor.
No. Thank you. I move the minutes presented as correct of the confirmation of the minutes. Could I have a seconder, please?
I'll second the minutes as outlined, Madam Mayor.
Are there any comments on the minutes?
Me, Madam Mayor.
So, Madam Mayor, you have 2 comments, and we start with Councillor Michael Miller.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, I do apologise. I should have declared an interest in agenda item 10, item number 6. I'm an employee of Lancashire County Council.
Thank you, Michael. That's noted. And now, Madam Mayor, you have Councillor Tim O'Kane.
Tim O'Kane, please, yeah.
Right, thank you, Madam Mayor. My comment refers to 3 parts of the minutes, namely page 14 of the report, when I said, and I quote, "No alternative budgets have been submitted." The second is on page 21, where reference is made in a Conservative amendment to £1 million of public money being used to remedy works at Mercer Baths. Now, if you remember, Madam Mayor, when I questioned at the meeting last, where this figure of £1 million had appeared from, I was told it was part of a fully costed Conservative budget. However, since that meeting, I have appeared at Audit Committee on March the 8th, where I asked our head accountant how accurate the costings were. And he replied that they seemed to be based on a pre-pandemic report delivered on March the 31st, 2020. I had another go at a broadcast meeting of scrutiny the following week, where I asked our head of leisure services if she had been consulted on the costings for Mercer Hall, on the assumption you always ask the head honcho, so to speak. She replied not, which begs the question, whose figures the mythical million were based on. So can I ask the question, Madam Mayor, where did the costings for the 2021 Conservative Hyndburn budget amendment come from? Was it a full meeting of Hyndburn Conservatives? Was it a memo from Jacob Rees-Mogg concerning some place up north called, and I'll try to say it as he said it, Hyndburn? Or is it from a back copy of Billy's Weekly Wire? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kane. Can we hear from Councillor Stephen Button, please?
Thank you, David. I just need to mention when it comes to the minutes of the Cabinet meeting, which is on item 8, in relation to the lease for Hyndburn and Ribble Valley CVS, I need to declare an interest because I'm a part-time employee for the CVS. Thank you.
Yes.
That interest will be noted. Thank you very much.
No more comments. No data say, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Obviously, Councillor O'Kane has mentioned the mythical million that the Conservatives have paraded around as the saviours of Mercer Hall. I'm saddened that, you know, we have a massive challenge with Mercer Hall, and we have, for me, uncosted amendments being put through the media, put on social media, put on, used to create petitions that have to be corrected. And also on the Hyndburn Conservative website, they misquoted myself and that had to be corrected. So for me, we have this challenge on Mercer Hall, but we have to make it factual. We have to speak to the residents honestly and have the conversations in a direct, but in a forthright and visionary and transformative manner. And having these misquotes and factually incorrect millions being peddled isn't helpful. It's disrespectful for this chamber, and then to be taken to the Houses of Parliament as a costed budget when that isn't the truth, frankly, for me, isn't correct. And if the Conservatives want to put $1 million, it shouldn't be from Hyndburn Council. It should be from government coffers, like the MP promised to bring funding in. And Hyndburn is yet to see any additional funding based on the promises of our elected MP. I'm saddened that, you know, we've had stories going out that this $1 million is costed when it isn't the case. So if we are going to be offering a solution to Mercer Hall, please make it factual, please make it transformative. Otherwise, this mythical $1 million is not going to wash with the residents of Great Harwood, because the only offer is the Lancashire Labour offer of working with Hyndburn Leisure Trust and Hyndburn Council to really transform Mercer Hall. And I reiterate, make sure it is the jewel in the crown for Great Harwood. And I said that at the previous meeting, I said it at the September meeting, I still stand by what I said. Unlike the Conservatives, I don't need to change what I put out. I will stand by what I said. And Mercer Hall will continue to be the jewel in the crown under Labour. Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor, that brings you to the end of the allotted time for that item. Yeah. So if you would like to move...
Sorry, vote to be taken, please.
So the minutes are moved and seconded. Madam Mayor, there's no indications. You may accept that as support for that movement. So back on to item 5, please, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Question time. 2 questions were initially received to put to the leaders of the council. However, Terry Earn has withdrawn question 2 in the light of further information he has received. The remaining questions from Councillor Josh Allen is as follows. Hyndburn Bus Business Park. Please can the leader of the council provide me with the update of the Hyndburn Business Park motion which was proposed by the Conservatives some months ago? Does the leader wish to give an oral answer?
Yes, Madam Mayor, and thank you for Councillor Allen for the question. During the last council meeting, I announced the setting up of a £150,000 economic development fund to help kickstart our recovery out of COVID. Over the past 2 weeks, we have worked hard to pull together a wide range of stakeholders and formed a steering group, which is working alongside experts from the High Streets Task Force to consider how best to use the fund. As a number of stakeholders are local business leaders, it would make sense that we seek to ask a small number of them to form a separate task and finish group who will work with officers to outline the look, feel, and most importantly, the contents. I am sure the production of an electronic business welcome pack will be available before the end of summer. And also, I'm sure if Councillor Allen or Councillor Howarth wish to be part of that, they are more than welcome to engage in that subgroup. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Can I ask if Councillor Allen wishes to ask a supplementary question?
No, I'm fine, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to thank Councillor Miles Parkinson for his response.
Thank you. Draft pay policy. Can I invite Councillor Joyce Plummer to introduce this item, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Localism Act 2011 requires all local authorities to set out various pieces of information relating to the remuneration of its employees. The policy must be approved by the Council in open forum by the end of March each year and then be published on its website. The pay policy is a document we therefore produce on an annual basis. It includes 1. The pay structure of the council and how it is set. 2. A link to our statement of accounts where details of the pay grade for post defined as chief officer and the accompanying allowances are listed. 3. The relationship between the salaries of the CEO and other employees. 4. Details of the lowest paid posts within the council. At Hyndburn, our lowest paid staff are paid foundation living wage. Employers' pension contribution details, and finally, termination of employment payments. At the time of submitting the report, national discussions are ongoing regarding the pay award, and no arrangements have been arranged at this stage. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Seconder Miles Parkinson, anything to say?
I second the report as outlined and the recommendations, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. No comments? No.
You have no indications, Madam Mayor?
Vote to be taken, please. Do we all agree?
Again, Madam Mayor, you have no indications. You may take it that the motion is passed. The resolution is passed. Thank you.
Report of the Independent Remuneration Panel. Can I invite the Leader of the Council to introduce this item and seconded by Joyce Plummer?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the report as outlined. As you're aware, this is a request from Councillor Patrick McGinley, which sent this request to the Independent Remuneration Panel. And I move that we accept the recommendation of the Remuneration Independent Panel, that the recommendation that an SRA is payable to the leader of any minority opposition group with 5 members at the lowest level of our current special responsibility allowances. Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I second that report.
Thank you. Nobody's indicated anything, So could we go to the vote, please? Do we all agree? Thank you.
Madam Mayor, you have no indications, so you may take that as approved.
Thank you. Minutes of Cabinet. Can I invite the Leader of the Council to introduce this item and seconded by Councillor Paul Cox?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the minute book as outlined.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll second that.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, we have Councillor Chris Knight.
Thank you, Mr. Welby. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was having some audio problems earlier on, so I didn't get the opportunity to declare an interest in one of the Cabinet reports. It's with regards Mercer House, and I serve as a board member on HRV CVS. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. That's noted. Councillor Stuart Eaves, please.
I also forgot to admit an interest. I also serve on the board.
Thank you, Stuart. That's noted too. Madam Mayor, you have no further indications.
Thank you. It is only noted, this one, so there's no vote taken. Minutes of the committee. Can I invite the Leader of the Council to introduce this item and seconded by Paul Cox?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move the minute book as outlined in the agenda.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll second that.
Thank you. Any comments, please? It is for noting only, no votes taken. Thank you. Motion submitted on notice. You will have seen that we have 8 motions before us this evening. In view of the limited amount of time available, can I ask all speakers to keep to the point and please do not repeat any points that have already been made. One amendment to each motion will be permitted at virtual meetings if submitted in the advance of writing. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So you may move to the first of the motions. And this is,
sorry.
Apologies, I was just going to say this is the motion 1 from Councillor Josh Allen.
Drive-through bins. Josh, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you've just pointed out, there have been some alterations to the motion. I'd like to ask this council to review and accept or decline, essentially, the amendment to the motion as I have changed it.
Thank you. So, councillors, you've seen circulated ahead of the meeting the motion is amended. Unless anybody objects, we will just ask Josh Allen to present the motion as amended. Do we have any objections? No, thank you. Can we move to Josh if you want to just present your motion, please, Josh?
Thank you, councillors. My motion is regarding drive-through bins. As we are all aware, fly tipping is a constant battle for all counties and councils across the country. Unfortunately, it lies with the government and local authorities to find new and innovative ways to tackle fly tipping and stop essentially fly tipping and littering across the country as well. One such method, which has been trialled to varying degrees across the world, is drive-through bins. These bins are strategically placed bins close to pavement edges, which allow the driver or passenger to throw the rubbish out the window directly into the bin. This removes the need for the driver to leave their cars. These bins are usually placed near exit ramps of motorways, car parks and country roads. I would like to ask this council that this council explores the feasibility and cost of the proposal and invites both Lancashire County Council and Highways England to be part of the process with the view to implementing any successful findings from the feasibility study. On a separate note, I would like to thank Councillor Paul Cox, who is Head of Environmental Services, for his advice on this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've got one hand up.
Thank you, Josh. Before we move to that, Madam Mayor, we have a seconder, Councillor Marlene Howarth.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I second this motion and reserve the right to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marlene. And we will now have up to 10 minutes to debate the motion. And we start with Councillor Glenn Harrison.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will be supporting this motion. Fly tipping's a blight on the borough. But I did want to just play devil's advocate for a moment. So bins close to pavement edges which allow drivers or passengers to throw their rubbish out the window into a bin. I can just imagine driving back from KFC or McDonald's with my children, coming round the bend at New Lane and saying, "Hey kids, let's see if you can get like a hole-in-one in that bin over there." Is it not the case that they're not going to be a crack shot, none of them are any good at netball, and you're going to end up with a load of litter around the bin? I like the premise of it. There's nothing wrong with asking for something to be reviewed. So I'm going to support it. But I'm just going to play devil's advocate and say that if the public were to read that and they were to say that we're basically all playing basketball, throwing things into a bin, or we're not going to miss the bin. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Can we move to Councillor Paul Cox, please?
Yes, thank you, David, and thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, when I first saw this motion, I thought, well, it's an idea, and I think we should all be open to ideas and looking at things. Is it feasible? I don't know. What's the cost of it? Again, I don't know. That's why, again, I got in touch with the mover and second to this and thought, the idea is there. Who knows? But I think, as we all know, and as we're all aware in this room, litter is a problem. And the problem we all experience and we all understand is Hyndburn Council doesn't drop litter. It's individuals that drop litter, and unfortunately it's a really small minority that do and spoil it for everybody else. But again, I'm quite open-minded, and I think it's something we should just have a look at and see where it goes.
Thank you, Paul. And we now move to the seconder of the motion, who reserved the right to speak, Councillor Marlene Howarth.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and David. The Conservative group 100% support this motion. It's one of the biggest problems that this borough and other parts of the country suffer from. And this motion provides us with a very proactive way of possibly solving the problem. We can't be certain it will work, but if we look at it positively, it just might. The residents of Hyndburn have shown their commitment to the borough by organising litter picks, and some of them have had extraordinary results, astonishing results. And this council should thank them profusely for their efforts. It's now up to us to show our commitment to solving this problem, and I hope that you will all support this motion. I know that we certainly will be. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Marlene. Can we now move to Councillor Tim O'Kane?
Thanks, David. Well, I like the premise of the motion, but when it says it's popular in different parts of the world, yeah, I can imagine it being popular in places like Arizona. Unfortunately, we're not in Arizona. I did a quick Google search on the cost of these, and they're about £400 each. Now, when you go into these costings, it's important that you actually do that and do cost the thing, because as I'm sure Paul will tell you, it's the effect on the bin crews. Who's going to be collecting these? It's going to be the bin crews, but the bin crews are already stretched. They're doing quite a difficult job already. So, in favour, but where's the money? Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. We have no further indications at this stage, so we will move to a vote. I haven't yet heard that anybody's going to object, so can the first proposition that I put be that if it's the case that you all support the motion, then there is no need to indicate. So please only indicate now if you would like to object to the motion.
Tim, you've still got your hand up. Thank you.
It's okay, I've lowered it. So, Madam Mayor, we have no indications of anybody wishing to object to the motion. Can I please ask you now, if you wish to abstain in the vote on this motion, would you indicate now? Madam Mayor, again, we have no indications. On that basis then, councillors, it is our intention to note that all councillors present supported the motion. If we've misunderstood your intention, please let us know. Thank you, councillors. In that case, it is noted that all councillors present supported the motion and the motion is carried. Madam Mayor, you can move to motion number 2, please.
Thank you. I must say on the last motion, I do litter pick outside my own house every day. Rishton to Manchester train link. Proposer is Councillor Marlene Howard and seconder is Kath Pratt, please.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. The Rishton to Manchester train link, the motion was proposed by, was initially submitted by Councillor Kate Walsh. We need to check whether that motion remains. Does that motion remain?
Hi, yeah, sorry. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to withdraw this motion as presented. This withdrawal is due to potentially significant developments away from the council, as well as strong feedback from residents to our survey in adding Rishton as a stop to Manchester service. We feel that it would be appropriate to delay this motion to a later date so we can really present a strong argument that reflects the residents' views, especially around accessibility of stations and connectivity via trains to the economic centres of Hyndburn. I think Councillor Howard's speakers on it sounding a bit like, you know, aliens. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Madam Mayor.
Thank you. That's the motion number 3.2, was it? Yes.
Yes, that was the second motion. Yeah, so you can move to motion number 3.
I don't appear to have it.
Madam Mayor, motion number 3 is Hyndburn train routes, potential restriction due to Castlefield congestion restriction. And that motion is to be moved by Councillor Nordad Aziz.
Can I propose the motion as outlined?
And do we have a seconder for that motion, please? I have no seconder for that motion. I have no seconder for that motion. Madam Mayor, in the absence of a seconder for that motion, we're going to move to motion number 4.
Thank you. NHS funding, and it's proposed by Councillor Marlene Howard and seconded by Kath Pratt, please.
I don't believe that's the case, Madam Mayor. This is my motion.
Yes, this motion is proposed by Councillor Glenn Harris.
Thank you.
Glenn, would you like to move the motion, please?
Thank you, David. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Over the last 12 months, this council's members have shown how working together cross-party has brought huge benefits to local residents of Hyndburn. So following the Right Honourable Member for Parliament Rishi Sunak's first budget of 2021 on the 3rd of March, we note no new money was given to the NHS. In fact, it's worse than just no new money. In the Red Book, published alongside Sunac's budget statement, the NHS England budget is shown to fall from 148 billion in 2020-21 to 139 billion in 2021-22. We feel the impact this would be detrimental to many Hyndburn residents as both service users and employees on the National Health Service. We believe by only returning the funding to the NHS to the levels pre-2010 would enable the service to face both present challenges and future ones in a more stable position and be able to offer a fair pay deal to all of our amazing NHS employees and support staff. We resolve to write to our Member of Parliament, Sarah Brickliffe, and formally ask her to countersign a letter from this council to be sent to the Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Member for Parliament Boris Johnson, the Health Secretary, the Right Honourable Member for Parliament Matthew Hancock, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the Right Honourable Member of Parliament Rishi Sunak, in which we state we feel the underfunding since 2010, coupled with current health issues, requires a fair deal to support all NHS services in their hour of need. As a united council and Member of Parliament, we ask that NHS funding as a percentage of the gross national product be returned to the level of pre-2010, which would allow much needed help to all public health spending and enable one of this country's national treasures the ability to face the future with confidence. I move this motion.
Thank you, Glenn. Can I ask if that motion is seconded, please?
Yes, formally seconded, and I reserve the right to speak. Thank you, Mr. Wellsby.
Thank you. Now, we do have notice of an amendment to that motion, Madam Mayor, with the mover of the amendment identified as Councillor Marlene Howarth. Marlene, would you like to move your amendment, please?
Thank you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
I seem to be getting a lot of crackling on my iPad. I don't know if you can hear me correctly.
We can hear you.
Yeah, I think we're all are, I think, Marlene, yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, the Conservative group definitely acknowledge the tremendous work that the NHS have done over the last year and even before that. We don't disagree that they are underfunded. In fact, the government, that is why the government have given an additional 92 billion to the health services over the last 12 months. What we are trying to say is a request in a friendly, responsible way is that the timing is wrong. This is absolutely a motion for later, when the country is on the way to some kind of recovery financially. We also feel it is not right to ask our MP, Sarah Brickliffe, to countersign this motion. She's fully aware of the problems within the NHS and equally aware of the financial problems in the country. And we are all, the Conservative group, are all confident that we'll make the right decisions at the right time. And the right time, I really feel, is not now. As much as the National Health Service I have acknowledged, and the tremendous work they've done. In fact, from a personal point of view, the work they did on trying to save the 4 members of my family were second to none. But we need to get the timing right. If the timing was right, the Conservative group will be delighted to support any motion that helps our NHS. If our amendment is denied, it's so sad, but we can't do anything but abstained from voting on your motion. And that is something that we feel very sad about. There's nothing wrong with the motion. It's just that the timing is not right. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Now, we don't debate amendments, and I say that because I can see Patrick McGinley's hand held. Can I ask if the amendment is seconded, please?
I second the motion. Sorry, excuse me. Sorry, David.
It's okay.
I second the motion and reserve the right to speak.
Thanks, Kath. There is no right to speak, but we
Well,
note that you second the motion. And now we return to Councillor Glenn Harrison to respond to the amendment.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've received the amendment from the Conservative Party, which is little more than playing politics and playing Hyndburn's public for fools. The amendments are as follows. Whilst we are thankful and acknowledge the additional 92 billion given to our health service in the past 12 months, and the second part of the amendment, as soon as the economy has recovered to a point that makes this achievable. So to analyse the first statement regarding the 92 billion extra funding, this is simply smoke and mirrors. With little research, the public will realise this. The budget shows government departmental spending in terms of resource and capital spending. Broadly speaking, resource spending relates to running costs or day-to-day costs, while capital relates to investments, for example, new hospitals. So the government's recent budget contained a 30 billion cut to day-to-day spending in the Department for Health and Social Care. Building hospitals such as the Nightingale Hospital, a cost of £500 million, then attempting to hoodwink Hyndburn's public by suggesting it's receiving any sufficient funding because of the 93 billion you suggest. To address the assertion that we simply cannot afford to pay our NHS heroes a fair deal, whilst at the same time giving £45,000 pay rise to Dominic Cummings, the man who mocked the public whilst breaking the rules he had set in the middle of a lockdown by visiting Barnard Castle, is nothing more than disgraceful. Clapping our heroes does not pay their bills. The 1% or £3.50 a week rise proposed by the government is a pay cut once inflation is factored. We've got a very big debt at the moment, we agree with that, but it's not the biggest debt we've ever had. It's not even the biggest debt we've had in the last 100 years. The debt at the end of the Second World War was bigger, and I think we're not in a situation like we were then when we were rebuilding the country from the ashes. The opinion survey for the Observer found 72% of the public thought the deal should be more generous, including 58% of Conservative voters. The amendments are nothing more than an attempt to pull the wool over the public's eyes, to have them believe that the extra funding is in some way some recompense and that they can some way not afford this. The government should make good on their commitment to honour the 2.1% pay rise, which they've reneged on. So those Hyndburn Conservatives should give the Hyndburn residents more credit rather than to draw a veil over the real story, which is that your NHS staff who saved your leader's life deserve more than a clap on the doorstep. I therefore reject the amendment and ask for the Conservatives to do the right thing and do not abstain from giving our NHS heroes the pay rise they deserve. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn.
Yeah. Well
so
said,
the
Glenn.
The first thing we do, councillors, is we're voting on the amendment that has been proposed by Councillor Marlene Howarth. So the first question I put to you in relation to the amendment is this. If you are a Conservative and you support, your vote will be cast as supporting your leader's amendment unless you now indicate. If you're a Conservative councillor and you support your leader's amendment, you don't need to indicate. Madam Mayor, we have no indications and therefore we will note that all Conservative councillors present tonight supported their leader's amendment. If you are a Labour councillor and you object to the amendment, you do not need to indicate. Madam Mayor, we will record that all Labour councillors present tonight objected to the amendment. Councillor Patrick McGinley, can I ask you please to let us know how you would like your vote recorded as an independent councillor, please?
Reject the amendment.
Thank you, Councillor McGinley. And now, on that basis, councillors, we now return to the discussion about the motion as it was originally submitted. Are there any further councillors who wish to speak in relation to that motion? And we have Councillor Patrick McGinley as the first indication. Patrick, please.
Thank you, Mr. Wellesby. First of all, I agree with Glenn Harrison that the amendment is politicking. The Conservatives want to go out and say to their voters, we support this, but then they won't tell them about the praise as soon as the economy has recovered. It probably won't recover sufficiently in our lifetime to give such a substantial rise anyway. On the issue of the proposal itself, there is a lot of good in it, Glenn, but you failed to mention, last week the union wrote to every councillor and you've omitted to show that the rise actually that they're asking for is 10%, a full 10%. Now, I actually think that is unachievable, particularly because of the government's financial status. When you consider that if the nurses got the same, then police officers, firemen and all the other public services would demand the same. Make no mistake about that. Totally unaffordable. I also wish to draw to your attention that not all NHS workers are frontline workers, in the sense that only about 25%, I understand, work in A&Es, ICUs and the major units. So many people within the NHS working officers, many have mundane jobs in this, and I don't undermine their work, but in the sense that they're basically clerks and file carriers in a lot of non-emergency sections of the hospital. I went regarding arthritis. There were 2 specialists and 2 nurses to each one, basically taking the patient in and just being observant. You know, not a stressful, hard-working lifetime for them. What I'm saying is, I think the Labour group need to differentiate between frontline workers in A&E and the intensive care and put them forward for a larger percentage rise. And I think Glenn's done himself a disjustice by not referring to the 10% when we were all told about it in a letter last week from the Union Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Patrick, thank you very much. Can we now move to Councillor Paul Cox, please?
Thank you, David, and thank you, Madam Mayor. It's a thing this pandemic has highlighted, and it's the divide we now face in society. That divide that exists between those who have and those that struggle. Look how vital school meals have become to children, how important it was to keep that extra £10 to universal credit claimants. Food banks are being accessed more than ever, often by people paid employment, people desperate. We live in a world where the difference in wealth and level of care you can expect is often dependent on your postcode. During this pandemic, it has been seen that in deprived areas, the death rate was almost double that of more affluent areas in the country. This world crisis has shown how understrained our NHS was, how stretched social care has become, and how desperate the services for extra doctors, nurses and support staff. And let's not forget that without the backroom staff, the cogs behind the scene making things work, then the frontline staff wouldn't be able to operate. So we should class them all equally. However, the reason why we brought this motion at this time is because now we face an opportunity. And this nation has faced similar situations, similar dark days. In particular, during the Second World War, the coalition government produced a document in 1942. The Beveridge Report was written and produced by a Liberal politician, Sir William Beveridge. That used the backdrop of a Second World War, of the war, to look for a better future. We haven't been at war, but we have faced a situation that meant normality may never return for some people. At the heart of Beveridge's plan was to rid Britain of want, and its companions was a comprehensive system of social care and welfare. Universal benefits that families would never lack the means of healthy subsistence or lack of income. At the time, Beveridge tasked the state with establishing a national minimum, a safety net, which no one could fall through. Central to his plan was a contributory system that would entitle the population to maternity, child and employment benefits, state pensions.
Paul, I'm going to have to ask you to draw it to a close if you can, please. No
problem. I feel that we're at a turning point and a reset moment. We have to ask our government to do the right thing and close the black hole that's facing the NHS. We've often heard the phrase, building back better. I say, let's build back fairer.
Thank you, Paul. Can I move to Abdul Khan, please?
Thank you, David. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Over a decade of Conservative austerity and reorganisation of the NHS by various different Conservative health secretaries, it has hampered the NHS. However, in the end, it was the NHS that came to the rescue of this government with the successful rollout of the vaccine programme. And I can testify to that. The wonderfully organised system at the Acorn Centre compared to the privatised test and trace system where a year on and no one is sure of its value or impact. That's why I will support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we move to Councillor Kate Walsh, please?
Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to pay tribute to all those key workers that lost their lives to COVID over the last year. I just wanted to make a point about frontline workers. Now, I mean, I come from a family where if you're not in the armed forces, you work in the NHS. So on a personal level, I know the hard work that NHS staff put into their jobs. Now, when you're talking about admin staff, those that are not classed as frontline workers, but are still on the same wards as our frontline workers, they're still exposing themselves to the same risks as those frontline workers because they're still able to catch that virus. So I just wanted to make that point, and I reiterate the point that Paul made that the NHS couldn't function without these admin staff and the other workers within it, the cleaners, the porters. I mean, just thinking about our local maternity services, I don't know whether you know this, but your maternity notes are kept at Burnley Hospital, you have your scans at Blackburn Hospital, and you might go to Blackburn Birthing Centre, which is a completely different building, a completely different place in Blackburn to have your baby. And how do you think that your medical notes get from these places? And, you know, what would you do if you were having your child and your medical notes weren't there? It's just, you know, it's really simple, really, isn't it? That we need, that everyone is as important as each other within the NHS. It couldn't work without everyone. What is a doctor without the medical notes, without the medical history? Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Can I move to Councillor Stuart Eaves, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Mr. Wellesby. After the year that we have had to endure, I am incredulous that Councillor Glenn Harrison and I have had to bring this motion to full council in response to Councillor Marlene Howarth. Due to chronic underfunding since 2010, The time is right for this motion, and the time is now. Any government success during this pandemic has been on the backs of the NHS and its brave staff. As of today, we have had 126,382 deaths in the UK attributed to COVID. By February, at least 230 frontline health and care workers have been identified after dying with the virus. During this time, the government has spent almost £2 billion on chronic contracts with Tory donors and friends. It is my hope that in the fullness of time, all social care in Britain will come under the NHS umbrella. However, I appreciate this may never be achieved. But a suggested £9 billion cut to the NHS funding is nothing short of disgusting and possibly catastrophic to the future of the NHS. Please support this motion.
Here.
Thank you, Councillor Eaves. Madam Mayor, under the rules that you asked to engage with tonight, we've now reached the 10 minutes debate for that motion, and you could now invite Councillor Harrison to sum up.
Thank you. I think I heard that, David. Okay, I'm okay to speak. Thank you, David. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you for all those that spoke in support. Thank you to Councillor McGinley. To address the point regarding what the unions want, I believe what you may be referring to is the RCN, the Royal College of Nursing, and that they may want to ask for a greater pay deal. However, that isn't what this motion seeks. The Tories promised 2.1%. This is what they promised, and this is what they are reneging on. We're not talking about a 10%, which is what the unions may be. We're talking about the 2.1% they were promised. Also, I want to make the point that NHS staff in Scotland are to be offered a pay rise of at least 4%, the Scottish Government confirmed. It also follows the £500 thank you payment for all health and social care workers, which was announced by First Minister Nicola Sturgeon in November. The Scottish, part of this pandemic, part of the debt that we have ensued, 4%. The NHS, in its inception, as well as the welfare bill, house building, the spirit of 45, rebuilding Britain after the Blitz and World War II. Are we seriously saying that we, coming out of a pandemic, are in the same state as rebuilding Britain from the ashes when the NHS was created? I don't believe people are buying it. All the people that served this nation, that served your Prime Minister, that saved his life, and you want to abstain on this motion. Last time you abstained on a motion, I believe that the public quite rightly believed that that wasn't the correct thing to do. Just because you're abstaining and not going against a motion basically says you have no opinion on the people that have given up their lives to serve our communities. It is an insult. We are no less equipped to deal with this now than we were when we welcomed our grandparents back from the battlefield. So I urge everybody, including the Conservatives, to vote for our NHS heroes and the health service we all love. Thank you.
Well said, Glenn.
Yes, here.
Thank you, Glenn. Madam Mayor, so we now move to a vote. Based on what I've heard, I would propose that if you are a Labour member, I believe that you will be in favour of this motion. If I've misunderstood and you are a Labour member, please indicate now. There are no indications, so it will be recorded that all Labour members present voted in favour of the motion. If you are a Conservative member, I believe, based on the statement of the party leader, that you would propose to abstain on this motion. If I've misunderstood that and you wish to vote otherwise, please indicate now if you're a Conservative member. Madam Mayor, it will be noted that all Conservative members present abstained on the motion. Councillor Patrick McGinley is an independent. Would you please let us know how you would like to vote?
In favour.
Thank you, Patrick. Madam Mayor, on the basis of the numbers present, the motion is carried. You may now move to motion 5. Madam Mayor, can I note that when we reached the third motion that was proposed by Councillor Nordad Aziz, no seconder came forward, and we quite correctly passed on to the fourth and the fifth motion. We have a request in the chat that says that there was a mistake on that part, and that Councillor Nordad Aziz would like to request that when the other motions are considered, you think about whether you have time for that. So can I propose you get to the end of the motions, and if you think there is time for the meeting to consider motion 3, you can ask again if it is proposed and seconded. But we'll have to wait, I think, now its turn while we move through the other motions that were received. Thank you. So, Madam Mayor, to motion number 5, please.
I can't hear you, June.
We can't hear you, June.
Thank you. We will look again if we can adjust the Mayor's sound quality. We've obviously had a problem with that, and I must apologise to Madam Mayor for that problem. So we are on the 5th motion, which has been moved by Councillor Marlene Howarth, please.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I just start by making a very clear point? Nobody in the Conservative group is against employment sites and creating highly skilled jobs for local people. It's what we all want and it's what we need. But that doesn't mean that we have to concrete over precious greenbelt land, particularly when there is plenty of available brownfield sites. As you're all probably aware, Blackburn with Darwen have put forward proposals for the land at the top end of Belthorn to be earmarked for houses. Many residents across Belthorn and the wider area have been in touch with both myself and our Member of Parliament, and I would even hazard a guess that they've probably contacted Councillor Glenn Harrison and Councillor Knight regarding this very issue. They've shared their objections and concerns with us over the future of the precious green belt in Belthorn, which is a beautiful, quaint little village, and rightly should be saved from this encroachment. Madam Mayor, as Hyndburn Borough councillors, this is exactly what we are sent here to do, to represent our residents. And I do hope that cross-party can support this motion to put forward our residents' concerns to Blackburn with Darwen Council. Our countryside is of great importance, and it cannot be understated just how much the scenery means to people. In fact, in 2015 government survey, nearly 60% of adults said it was our countryside which makes them most proud of Britain. And I can only agree with these people. Our local surroundings are some of the finest, and I would encourage every single member of this chamber to see for yourself the beautiful views that are available in Belthorn. Many residents from across Guide and Belthorne did submit their objections to Blackburn with Darwen Council before the process closed, giving the council plenty of time to review the objections and hopefully to make amendments to the local plan, which recognises that this green belt site should be protected. It's one of our most precious resources. It was designed to give protection to our towns and local residents against an urban sprawl. It not only separates our towns, allowing them to keep their unique characters, but it also allows them to breathe. These corridors of green are home to much flora and fauna, which add to the biodiversity of our nation and our planet. The loss of green belt not only reduces the habitats for many of our native animals, putting them in danger of extinction, the loss of green fields and trees, that means our air quality suffers. Yes, we need more houses. We need more employment sites. Too many of our children are unable to get on the property ladder because there aren't enough homes for them to buy, which pushes up the cost, making them unaffordable. This is a vicious circle, but one where the answer is not to build on our greenbelt. As I've already said, there is loads of brownfield sites, old abandoned sites in our towns that can be reused to provide the housing we need. Once the green belt is built upon, it's lost forever. There's no going back. We cannot put back hundreds of years of nature at the click of our fingers. We need to think very carefully before we take action. The Conservative councillors across both Blackburn with Darwen and here, along with MPs, have been speaking and listening to residents, and a public have supported them. And that is why we as a council together need to voice our local residents' concerns to Blackburn and Darwen Council. And I really hope that you can all support this motion, please. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Marlene. So, Marlene, you've actually moved a motion with an amendment as amended. So that has been circulated to councillors. Our procedures do require me to ask councillors whether we have the consent of the meeting to debate the motion as amended. So please speak up if you don't give your consent. Otherwise, we debate the motion as presented in the papers that are circulated. So I don't have anybody speaking up on that point, in which case we're going to debate now the motion as amended. And Councillor, so can I first check, do we have a seconder for that motion?
I second Mr. Wellesby and reserve the right to speak.
Thank you, Judith. And now we move to the speakers, and we start with Glenn Harrison, please.
I support this motion. It's a motion that I'm involved with on many levels, from my auntie in Belthorne to my mother in Guide, to my school friends that live in the village of Belthorne that I went to school with. Belthorne's a beautiful village. I think it may be the highest village in Lancashire. No matter when you knock doors in Belthorne, even on a hot summer's day, especially when you've got a quiff like me, it's always blowing all over the place. It's an absolutely stunning village. And to desecrate in any way greenbelt land when we have no shortage of brownfield sites is criminal. As chair of the environmental group, I hold dear to me many climate issues, and I am a massive lover of green fields and going for walks with my family, as many of us will be, particularly in these tough times of lockdown. So I will not say too much more other than to say hands off our greenbelt land in Belthorne.
Thank you, Glenn. I pass now to Councillor Chris Knight.
Thank you, Mr. Wellesby. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to lend my voice, Marlene, to everything that you and Glenn have said 100%. We can't allow greenbelt land as beautiful as it is up in Belthorne and Guide to be built on. It is there for all residents to enjoy, and it needs to be preserved and protected. I think the other challenges with this particular area of land and where it is geographically, we're aware of that there's potentially something like 0.07 tonnes of nuclear waste buried under there. The actual tonnage being much bigger, but there's a heck of a lot of potential for some significant pollution in future if we don't protect that greenbelt. So I fully support the motion, Marlene.
Thank you, Chris. Can we move, please, to Councillor Kate Walsh?
Thank you for that. Yeah, so I hope you can all hear me. I know that we're having some terrible technical difficulties tonight. But yeah, I actually used to live in Belthorne, and I completely concur that it's a beautiful part of the world. And I think that our views, especially as Hyndburn councillors, whether you're an independent, a Conservative or a Labour Party member, I think our views often align that the greenbelt needs protecting, and that's, you know, there's no in between space there. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Can I invite Councillor Stuart Eaves, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Mr. Wellesby. I'll also be supporting this motion. Belthorne, I've got to argue, it's probably the coldest place on earth, no matter what time you're doing your canvassing up there, and it's also the land of ferocious dogs. I'm sure some of my colleagues will tell the story of what happened with me one day up there. I have friends that live there still. I have friends that have lived there in the past. And in my opinion, Belthorne should stay just how Belthorne is at this moment in time. Thank you.
Councillor Nodad Aziz, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wellesby. I fully support, protecting Greenbelt and, challenging Blackburn. But one of the things is, I'm surprised the Conservatives haven't actually lobbied central government for a change in policy. Because one of the things is, a lot of the time, the local council, the local authorities are tied by the national policy framework of what is allowed on Greenbelt, especially when it comes to building certain element and meeting their targets. So I would have liked not just passing the buck to Blackburn, to actually go down to Parliament and say, actually, you've had planning ministers, you've had housing ministers, Conservative housing ministers, blasting anything building in the countryside as NIMBYism. So in terms of, there should be a challenge in government as well, rather than just passing the buck to Blackburn with Darwin in this single issue. Because for me, protecting the boundaries of each township and making sure there's a clear boundary between each county is clear. Sometimes the local authorities' hands are tied. And because obviously, given that it needs to meet the target. So I think, as well as this, I would have liked them to write to central government to actually challenge them around the national policy framework.
Many thanks. And because the speeches have been short, we still have time for Councillor Dave Parkins, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Mr. Wellesby. As Vice Chair of Planning at Hyndburn, I will do all my utmost to protect the green belt. Only last Wednesday, we had an application for a firm in Altham, which had very special circumstances to sneak into the green belt, which they did, and it was passed. But don't forget, you have a Prime Minister who says build, 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 you know. But at the end of the day, on the green belt, it's developers are in the Tories' pockets, which they are. They always support the Tories, money-wise and other things. But I shall do my utmost with planning permission, i.e. planning legislation and what have you, to support this. I'll support this amendment as well. Thank you, Madam Mayor and Mr. Wellesby.
Thank you very much. Madam Mayor, that concludes the debate. I think we return to the mover to sum up, Councillor Marlene Howarth.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, Marlene.
Yeah, thank you so much for all the kind words that you've said. I do believe that we should be preserving our green belt, and it's nice to know that all of you feel exactly the same way. And here's hoping that even though it's just a small thing that we're doing, by writing to Blackburn with Darwin and asking our chief executive to find what their original plans are, then yes, maybe we will be able to do more. Parts of Belthorne are in Hyndburn. Most of Belthorne is in Hyndburn. And I will have a word with our MP regarding speaking to one of the ministers that deals with this. I take on board what Councillor Aziz has said. But I am so pleased that we're all singing off the same hymn sheet here. I hope we're all singing off the same hymn sheet. Thank you.
Thank you, Marlene. So you have the motion in front of you. I'm going to say that in relation to the second part, it says that the Chief Executive write to the leader of Blackburn with Darwin Council. That wouldn't normally be appropriate. It would be that the Mayor would write to the leader of Blackburn with Darwin Council as an elected member to another elected member. So again, with the consent of the meeting, if you're happy for us to make the second part of it that the Mayor will write to the leader of Blackburn with Darwin expressing your views, that would be the more appropriate action.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So unless there's any objection, no, that seems to have your consent. Thank you for that. In that case, on the basis of the debate that I've heard, I'm going to propose that it's my belief that all councillors support the motion that's been submitted by Councillor Marlene Howarth. If I've misunderstood your view, please will you indicate? Madam Mayor, there are no indications, and therefore it will be recorded that all councillors present tonight supported the motion, motion 5, as proposed by Councillor Marlene Howarth. You may now move to motion number 6, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Motion number 6 is, there's no amendment to this one, it's NJC pay claims, and it's Councillor Paddy Short and seconded by Councillor Dave Parkinson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I propose this motion. Over the last 10 years, councils across this country have had draconian funding cuts imposed on them by this Conservative government. Hyndburn alone has had over £40 million, taken away from our borough and our residents. We, like many councils, have had to make really hard decisions due to these cuts. One of these decisions has been to reduce the amount of employees we employ. This has led to council workers being asked to do more for less real-term pay. The fact that our residents have still received the same high-quality frontline services under these challenging circumstances is testament to the hard work and dedication of our employees. During the last 12 months of unprecedented challenges, our council employees have once again stood up to the plate and kept our borough working and our communities clean and safe. It is time this Conservative government showed real support to our dedicated council employees and offered them a real terms pay rise that they have earned. The government need to decide where their priorities are. Is it to give billions of pounds of handouts to their party donors, their friends, and even their MPs' local pub landlords? Or do they reward those employees whose hard work and dedication have kept our communities safe and clean? I therefore request that the council resolves to support the pay claim submitted by GMB, Unison and Unite on behalf of the council and school workers for a substantial increase with a minimum of 10% uplift in April 2021. Call on the Local Government Association to make urgent representations to central government to fund the NJC pay claim. Write to the Chancellor and Secretary of State to call for a pay increase for local government workers to be funded with new money from central government. Meet with local NJC union representatives to convey support for the pay claim and consider practical ways in which the council can support the campaign. And lastly, encourage all local government workers to join a union. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paddy. Can I ask, please, if we have a seconder for that motion?
Councillor Dave Parkins.
Thank you, Dave. Are you reserving the right to speak?
Sorry, I reserve the right to speak, Mr. Wellesby. Thank you.
Thank you. So we do have notice of an amendment to this motion. Can I ask the mover of that amendment, Councillor Marlene Howarth, please, to describe the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Wellesby. Our amendment to the motion, which we don't disagree with, is that we do this again, similar to the NHS amendment, that we do this when the economy in the country has recovered to a point where this is achievable. And again, calling on the Chancellor and Secretary of State to call for a pay increase, that we do this again when the economy has recovered to a point that will make it achievable. I don't think that it would be achievable at the moment. And again, it puts us in a position, the Conservative group, where we would be unable to support the motion simply because we feel that the timing is wrong. We don't disagree with the motion, apart from that the timing is wrong. And therefore we would probably be abstaining.
Is the amendment seconded?
I second the amendment.
Thank you. Glenn and other councillors, forgive me, but I have lowered your hands because we don't debate amendments. What I'll do now that we've had the amendment moved and seconded is return to Councillor Paddy Short to respond to the amendment.
This is obviously very similar to a previous amendment about the NHS. For the last 11 years, this government has kicked the can down the street, and I think the can's actually disappeared over a cliff somewhere because we're never going to find it, and that's the issue. We can just ignore it, or we can actually do what I said in the original motion, is that we reward the employees that keep our streets safe and clean and work fantastic for us. So I reject that amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Paddy. So, councillors, we're now going to vote on the amendment as moved by Councillor Marlene Howarth. I will propose that if you are a Conservative councillor here tonight, you would support your leader's amendment. If I've misunderstood you, please let me know. Thank you, councillors. So all Conservative councillors present tonight will have their vote recorded in favour of the amendment proposed by Marlene Howarth. If you are a Labour member, it's my understanding that you would reject the amendment put by Councillor Marlene Howarth. If I have misunderstood your intentions or wishes, please indicate as a Labour member. There are no indications, and therefore we will record that all Labour members present voted to reject the amendment put by Councillor Marlene Howarth. Councillor Patrick McGinley, can I ask you please to let us know how you would like to vote? You're on mute, Patrick. Apologies.
Support the amendment, sir.
Thank you, Patrick. Could I ask you to return to mute, because I do know that we're having some feedback problems this evening. Thank you very much. On the basis of the numbers of votes cast, Madam Mayor, the amendment is now rejected, and we return to the debate of the motion as set out originally by Councillor Paddy Short, and we have a number of speakers indicating already, starting please with Councillor Glenn Harrison.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to speak to the last line in the motion, encourage all local government workers to join a union. I am a caseworker and organiser for a union, the largest union in the UK. And I know that many of my colleagues, including Conservative colleagues, I think Judith Addison may be a lifelong honorary member of my union, Unison. And I just wanted to speak to what the hard-fought rights of the union have been. If you've ever had maternity pay, thank you to the unions. If you've ever had paid weekends, thank you to the unions. The end of child labour, thank you to the unions. You may not be in a union, but somewhere along the line, every single person here has benefited from their existence. We have some way to go to get the youth to understand the merit of a union. The average age of a trade union member, I believe, is 45 years old. So I'm pretty young at 41. But I do believe that the union movement are a force for good, and I encourage it, even if on that line alone. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. To Andrew Clegg, please.
Thank you. I'm having IT issues, so my camera's off, so I do apologise for that. Well, I'm just hearing this phrase time and time again tonight, that when the time is right, we will propose that we will do this when the time is right. Can I just ask the question, why was the time right to raise the cap on the Trident nuclear warheads and the costs of that? Why is the time right for that when we can't fund these motions? Can they answer that for me?
Thank you, Andrew. Can I move to Councillor Paul Cox, please?
Thank you, David. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I just like to say the same thing. The timing's never right. But one thing I will say, can we afford this? I would argue we cannot afford not to do this and support this. Because I think we have to take ourselves back to some very, very, very choice words that mean a lot to me as a union member, and something that was one of the reasons why I joined the Labour Party. To secure for the workers by hand or by brain the full fruits of their industry, which essentially means a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. And we have to see council employees, all public sector employees have gone above and beyond over the last 12 months, above and beyond to deliver services that have helped keep this country running. We touched on it earlier. It's not just the frontline staff, it's the backroom staff. It's the people sorting out the wages, the clerks, all those individuals. it's the accountants, it's every single part of that cog that creates that wheel that makes the machine move. All of it. We should all support this motion and give these people exactly what they deserve, because I think there is no other option to this. There'll never be a right time. Let's make that time now. Let's set the time scale. Let's us dictate. I fully support this motion.
Thank you, Paul. Can I invite Councillor Stuart Eaves, please?
I'd like to congratulate Paul Cox in the first thing for quoting clause 4. Well done. It's a pity we ever lost it. What I'd like to say is really, we keep talking and banging on about the time is when the time's right. If these cuts and pay freezes hadn't have been imposed on our workers in the first place, we wouldn't need to be talking about when the time is right. They'd have been up there where they need to realistically be. I remember the halcyon days when I joined the National Graphical Association. 100% closed shop. You couldn't work at a print factory if you weren't a trade union member. And I couldn't even apply for a better paid job without the full agreement of the local branch office. Please support this motion.
Thank you, Stuart. Councillor Patrick McGinley, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Wellesby. For the last 4.5 years of my police service, I held a senior position on a national union, namely the Police Federation for England and Wales. And I thoroughly support the motion for increases for these people, for all the NJC people. But I believe that the specific claim put forward by the team is actually unrealistic, unachievable and not acceptable because of the words with a minimum of 10% uplift. Had it been a more realistic percentage, I would be in full support. But once again, to go for 10%, you all know will open the floodgates for every other union, every other public service, and there's no way that anybody will get a 10% increase. I think you should moderate the percentage to make a more sensible application. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Can I invite Councillor Tim O'Kane, please?
Thank you, David. I support Paddy's motion. We've got to remember we're a low-wage economy in Hyndburn. And when all these other schemes about supermarkets and this that are coming in, if the people can't afford to buy in them, they're not going to. They're just not. It's just not going to happen. And I too am sick to the back teeth of this expression when it's achievable. When was it achievable to lash out £57 billion of public money on a test and trace system which doesn't work? That was available within a week. And yet they will say, oh no, but I had to do it because of the pandemic. It's only because some of the lower paid workers in the NHS took over the mantle and were able to deliver on the thing that anything got happening. And I've got a bit of a bee in my bonnet about the fact that 10,000 troops are going to be on the scrap heap, so to say. Just 3 months ago, we had the Welsh Fusiliers. They were swabbing truck drivers. They're still doing certain works in that, in preparation for Brexit and all its manifestations. So, who's going to pay them? It's a complete nonsense. I support fully.
Thank you, Tim. Can I move to Judith Addison, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Mr. Wellesby. Well, I actually couldn't believe what I was reading when I read this motion of Councillor Short's minimum of 10% uplift in April 2021. We've just been talking about we're struggling to give 2% to 1% to the nurses, and even in Scotland where they're more generous, it's only going to be like 4%. But as you know, I worked in local government with Hyndburn for most of my career, and I have to say that town hall workers, to put it bluntly, don't arouse public sympathy in, say, the way that nurses do. If we stop people in the town centre and ask them what their perception was of town hall workers, I'm sure they would say cushy jobs, overpaid, long holidays, good pension scheme. These things might all be false, but this is the perception that people have of local government. And how we, as Glenn says, I am a retired Unison member, and it's not just Labour and Socialist people who joined trade unions. And people used to ask me why I was in Unison, and I said I believe in justice and fairness in the workplace. But how can we be proposing to ask for a pay rise of 10% for our own staff when so many people in the borough have lost their jobs, they've had to close their businesses down permanently, they've had to take a cut in pay, they've been furloughed? It just looks to me as though it's sending out the message, I'm all right, Jack, and blow to you, because I think that trade unionism is about, caring for all our fellow human beings, and I really think it's totally unreasonable at this point in time to be thinking of campaigning for a 10% pay increase for our staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Judith. I have time for one more speaker, and that's Jean Battle, please. Jean, you're muted. Jean, you are still muted.
I'll be voting for this motion this third time. Public sector workers, whether they're in the health service, whether they're in education, public sector, like councils, haven't had a decent pay rise for at least 10 years. Now, they're falling behind everybody else. I have 2 members of my family who work in education. They've not seen a proper pay rise. In a bit, they'll be able to claim benefits because they don't keep up with inflation. Diane's another example of working for education, she'll tell you. So I think to say that we can't afford it is wrong, because we've always been able to afford it, and this Conservative government haven't seen fit to give the workers a decent pay rise.
Thank you, Jean. Forgive me again, councillors, if you're in the queue, but we've now reached the allotted time, and I now need to move to Councillor Paddy Short, please, to sum up the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Wellesby. Our workers are public service superheroes. They keep our communities clean and safe, look after those in need, and keep our towns and cities running. Without the professionalism and dedication of our staff, the council services our residents rely on would not be deliverable. Local government workers deserve a proper, real terms pay increase. The government needs to take responsibility and fully fund this increase. It should not put the burden on local authorities whose funding has been cut to the bone and who have not been offered adequate support for the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you, Paddy. That concludes that debate, councillors. I first need to check in with
Reserve the
Councillor.
right to speak, Mr. Wellesby. I did reserve the right.
You did reserve the right. You didn't indicate within the time. Madam Mayor, would you like to take that contribution from Dave Parkins, please? Madam Mayor asks that you're short today, but she would like to accept your contribution, please.
Thank you. Apologies for that, Mr. Wellesley, Madam Mayor. Yeah, as an ex-public sector worker on the refuse collection side of the council, I've done most jobs on the cleansing, and I've worked with officers on the council itself. I've even been out with other officers to see the day-to-day jobs, what they do. And no joking, they do a hard job. They do. And you always start at 10%, whatever, but there's no saying that they'll get 10%. You always start at the top, as everybody knows. They might end up with 5%, whatever. But at the end of the day, our officers and our workers, from the chief exec down to the street cleansing people, are backbone to this borough. And at the end of the day, they deserve a pay rise and pay rise now. I saw Councillor Harrison put up that the MPs, all MPs, mind you, Labour, Liberal and Tory, voted to self 11% rise some years ago. It's all right for them to have it, you know, but let's get down to the workers, the people what run this borough. And at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want to keep good officers. We want to keep good workers in all departments. They do an excellent job, and they've been crucified of these officers and workers in this borough. And like I say, at the end of the day, it's that they deserve a large pay rise. 11 years of austerity, and you know, 50 pence doesn't pay a pound bill, which it doesn't. So I fully support this motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor and Mr. Wellesby.
Thank you, Dave. So I'm not going to return to Paddy because he already has summed up. I need to check in, please, firstly with Councillor Marlene Howarth. Marlene, is it your belief that the Conservative group members would wish to abstain or to reject the motion?
We will abstain.
Thank you. On that basis, I'm talking first to the Conservative members. The Council will record the votes of all Conservative members present as abstaining from this motion unless you now indicate. Thank you. There are no indications. Sorry, there are a couple of councillors with microphones on. If you could turn it off, that would help the sound quality for everyone in the meeting. Marlene, you too, please. Councillors, on the basis of that, we are noting that every Conservative member present abstained in relation to the motion. On the basis of the debate, I believe it is the case that the Labour members present are voting in favour of this motion. If I've misunderstood anybody's intentions or wishes as a Labour member, please let me know. Madam Mayor, we will note that all Labour members present voted in favour of the motion. And can I turn now to Councillor Patrick McGinley and ask what your intention or wish is, Patrick?
Yes, sir. On the basis of a minimum 10%, I reject.
Thank you, Patrick. On the numbers of votes cast, Madam Mayor, that motion is carried, and you may now move to motion number 7.
Thank you. Please, members, note number 7. It's Councillor Marlene. Start again. It's the Trolling and Harassment Voluntary Charter, and it's Councillor Jenny Molyneux and seconded by Bernadette Parkinson. And Jenny's asked me to read this out for her, please. Request that Chief Executive write to the Department of Justice, the Department of Communities and Local Government, and seek guidance on what constitutes inappropriate language by elected representative or senior members of all local political parties when disagreeing with members of the public or other elected representatives on social media. That the Chief Executive ask the local government leaders of all political parties represented within the council to write to the Prime Minister asking for a law to be changed to make it an offence to troll and to deliberately designate all elected members. Ask the Chief Executive for Legal and Democratic Service to draw up a voluntary charter for Hyndburn's elected members that require the members to have signed a charter to always be respectful of members and the public or other elected members regardless of their location or the platform. That the Executive Director for Legal and Democratic Services bring this charter to the next full council for a formal adoption of this council. That the Chief Executive write to all registered local Hyndburn political parties asking them to adapt this charter within their local party and to publish this register each year. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So that stands moved by Councillor Jenny Molyneux. Jenny, would you just like to confirm that you're moving that?
Yeah, David, I'll move it, and I also want to speak as well, please, if that's okay.
Sorry, I'm not sure what you're saying. You'd like to reserve the right? You're the mover of it.
Are you going to go to Bernadette to second, or do you want me to speak now?
Well, I think you've just asked the Mayor to move it, haven't you? Is that the case?
No, I just asked her to read it out because I'm unable to read such a long document out using my technology.
Okay. Thank you very much, Jenny. Do we have a seconder, please?
Yeah, I'd like to second the motion and reserve the right to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Jenny, please, if you'd like just to continue with your thoughts in relation to that motion.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wellesby, and thank you, Madam Mayor. It's with a heavy heart and great sadness that I've felt the need to bring this motion to Council this evening. Many of us within this meeting experienced and are continuously experiencing trolling, harassment, victimisation through email or social media platforms. As the motion states, technological advances have had such a positive impact on many people's lives, including getting families together, especially in these difficult times, but unfortunately can also have devastating effects on people's emotional well-being. I don't know whether many of you saw the documentary last week of the story of Caroline Flack, but I am sure you are all aware of the devastating consequences that occurred following continuous trolling, harassment through social media and other platforms. Not only does this have an effect on the individual who is being harassed, but it also has a catastrophic effect on their family members and friends. It's like throwing a rock into a pool and watching go out. I don't have to imagine what it's like to walk in to think that you found someone you love has taken their own life because of trolling, harassment and victimisation, the constant undermining of somebody's confidence and well-being, because it's happened to me in August 2019. That person felt that they had no other outcome because of the continuous trolling, victimisation, bullying and harassment they were experiencing, that the only way they thought they could finish it was to leave the ones they love and to take their own life. I've been dealing with this for the past 18 months, and I was fortunate because I had the support of friends, family members, a wonderful mental health team, support from other organisations who not only supported the person who it directly affected, but provided me with trauma therapy, provided my family with support, because it doesn't just affect that individual, it affects their family members. They've witnessed something horrendous that you cannot not see. Madam Mayor, there are many people who are on this meeting this evening who over the number of years have waxed lyrical about mental health services, suicide prevention, and be kind, but unfortunately haven't necessarily been kind themselves. Madam Mayor, it's about time that these members put their money where their mouth is, start practicing what they preach, and support this motion this evening. Thank you.
Jenny, thank you for that.
Thank you.
But Madam Mayor, we have a very long list of speakers now. Given the time allocated to the debate of each motion, I must ask the speakers, please be considerate to others who want to contribute, and keep your contributions to the point. Please, can I invite Councillor Glenn Harrison first, please?
I fully support this motion. I'm somebody that suffers pretty much on a daily basis abuse by online trolls. My party, the Labour Party, just like every other party, including the Conservative Party, are likely told, instructed to report their ward work online. So when doing as instructed, which is reporting my ward work on several chat sites throughout the borough, I am abused. I have my mother, my family, my friends who witness this abuse. I have been threatened physically. I have had my number rang up in the middle of the night. I have been inboxed. And I say to every single troll that ever threatens me or anybody else, I'll continue to do my ward work. I'll continue to post those potholes. And ironically, quite often, and it is my sincere belief, that nobody was ever offended by a pothole. No one was ever offended when I went and cleaned up their rubbish up Belthorne or anywhere else. They're offended by the colour of my rosette. And what is the difference between prejudicing against somebody because of their religion compared to prejudicing against someone because of their politics? It is a disgrace, and we should ignore the trolls. Graham Jones, the former MP for Hyndburn, I've never seen anyone receive as much abuse as he did over Brexit. He had broad shoulders enough to understand that it's fine to critique an MP, it's not fine to abuse them. And that is the same for councillors. I wholeheartedly, 100% support this motion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Glenn, Kate Walsh, please.
Thank you. I welcome this motion because over the last 12 months, I feel that online trolling is reaching a manageable level. On a personal level, I'm regularly a victim of such abuse. Online trolls are not above calling out my size and even my children. It's hurtful. As an elected member, I did expect some level of abuse, but I expected that people would attack my politics and not my personal life and not how I look. This rarely happens where they attack my politics, so I can only assume that I'm an absolutely brilliant politician. But my transgressions seem to be being overweight, having ginger jeans, having a job, dyeing my hair bright red. I don't need to say all this because I know that these members in this room will have seen all this. And the abuse happens to all of us. To me as a young woman in politics, to elder members of our council. They happen to men on our council who receive threats of physical violence on a regular basis. But I despise the racial abuse that our Bay members receive on a daily basis. I really do. And it's all our responsibility. It's not just the Tories and it's not just Labour. It's everyone in this room's responsibility to not encourage these personal comments online and also not to encourage this harassment. And I really hope that we can all move forward from this, and that this motion will bring about a change in Hyndburn, and hopefully that the change will snowball across the country. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kate. We still have a long list, so if you could be brief in making your points, please. Lorraine Cox.
Thank you, David. This is a motion I feel highlights that this is the sign of the times we now live in. There are people that live this daily. I agree a healthy discussion and debate is the cornerstone of free speech and democracy. However, in the motion, the 21st century has brought about significant technology change. The downside of this is not only Twitter and Facebook, but also group chats, emails and messaging. These platforms can develop into such as exclusion when others intentionally leave someone out of a group, such as group messaging. This also is a form of social bullying, from what I have witnessed and seen. Being bullied online can affect someone enormously. Being bullied can impact on a person's self-esteem, confidence and social skills. And in many cases, they have to leave work and also social networks to escape bullying. From what I have seen from people being bullied online is the most vicious gossip, rumours are often spread by the people who are once your friend, watched by innocent bystander, but we all know there is no such thing as an innocent bystander. Try to consider the impact of your words may have on someone and think twice before posting. This is why I fully support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
To Marlene Howarth, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Wellesby. I will have to say that the Conservative group 100% agree with this motion and will unreservedly support it. Facebook is in most cases a wonderful asset, but it can also be a nightmare, as I've learned from personal experience. And I'm sure that a lot of others in this meeting have already had the same thing and being the victims of trolls. In most cases, it's people who don't know and aren't in possession of the full facts of what they're talking about. And that is what causes all these responses, etc., to and froing. But more importantly than that, I feel and believe as councillors that we have to set the example of politeness, kindness to other councillors, especially in a full council meeting where members of the public can now listen in. I'm absolutely positive that they don't want to be hearing personal disgusting remarks from the opposition calling members thick as bricks, which was said at the last council meeting, or consistently harassing the MP, who, funnily enough, she's consistently spoken about it on online, about online abuse, not for herself, but for all those who face it, and has called for more action to be taken to tackle this. In a recent and very passionate speech she made in Parliament on International Women's Day, she read out just some of the comments she has had directed towards her since being elected. And I must say, I was absolutely shocked to hear, and I have to tell you this, that all the comments that she stated publicly came from the local Labour Party members in Hyndburn. When we talk about kindness, it's very true that some in this chamber as Councillor Molyneux has already said, need to look at their behaviour and those of the party, not just the Labour group, everybody.
Marlene, I do need to ask you to conclude if you would, please.
They've always claimed to want a kind of gentle politics, in the words of the leader that they once followed. But I do 100% support this. Our Conservative Party support it, and our Conservative Association support it, and we would most definitely sign a charter to hopefully stop all of this happening. Thank you, Mr. Wellesby.
Thank you. And I'm going to move quickly to Nordad Aziz, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wellesby and Madam Mayor, for allowing me to speak. I fully support this motion. Like other members, I get my fair share. You know, ever since I get an added based on my colour, my faith. So, you know, even though I probably got one of the strongest Lancastrian accents in the chamber, I still get told to go back where I came from. I always respond, what, Grieve Street, Grey Harwood? You know, what? So, you know, we have a member. And for me, we need to all take, believe that our words have consequences. Each one of us, we're in an elected position, and each one of us have a duty to realise what we say has an impact. So we need to understand that, you know, how we carry ourselves has an impact on the residents of Hyndburn. It's like, for me, one of the biggest things that hurts me is when it impacts on my family. My parents, my wife doesn't even want the limelight. They want to stay in the background. But for them, when I get some of the abuse I get, you know, when I just try my best, you know, whether it's delivering Easter eggs or, you know, working with the hub, just the abuse I get for it is uncalled for. But but one thing I've developed is thick skin. It doesn't bother me, but it bothers my family. So, you know, we need to realise words have consequences. And I'm going to share an anecdote, and I didn't want to bring it in. On the referendum day, Brexit, when I was walking to the polling station with my sister, and a person come up quite intently and said to me, "We're getting rid of the polls today, and you're next." So we need to realise the action of the past 10 years has emboldened the fruitcakes and the nutters, and we need to say no, enough's enough, and come back from the breach. Realise that, you know, the politics of division, the politics of hate cannot continue, and ultimately we really need to realise we as a community need to come together to drive Hyndburn forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nordad. I noticed that Bernadette has only just rejoined the meeting. She was indicating earlier she did reserve the right to speak, and I do need to ask Bernadette, would you like now to exercise your right to speak?
Yes, please. I've had to move on to a different computer because mine's gone. Trolls and harassment have a massive effect on people's health and well-being. It doesn't just destroy people's self-esteem, it can do much worse. When I was young, if you were bullied at school, you could get away from it. It's hard to get away from it now because it follows you home. It follows you on your phone. It's someone's life, it's someone's child, it's someone's sister or brother that people are trolling and abusing. Social media is a huge part of our lives. It's used in everything and it's everywhere. We all use it, our friends, advertisers, celebrities, retail brands, etc. Most trolls are anonymous or make up a false account of email addresses. More often than not, the troll is someone you know, a friend, a colleague with a personal vendetta against you or one of your family, and encourages other people to troll you. The consequences for a victim of trolls can lead to depression, anxiety, self-harm and even suicide. Some trolls cannot resist to copy people in and share their post. Those who witness it, really react, mostly because they fear the retributions of getting involved. If you're being trolled and receiving harassment, do not respond to the troll. Block the troll. Change your privacy setting. If the abuse you're receiving make you feel a threat or is otherwise unlawful, report it to the social media platform and the police. My question is to you, if you saw someone being attacked on the street, would you intervene and call the police, or would you turn a blind eye? Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bernadette. Councillors, there were other councillors indicating, but we have gone over the allocated time for this. But I do note from the number of councillors who we've not been able to hear from tonight that this is obviously something that you all feel very strongly about. I will return now to Jenny to sum up, please.
Thank you, Mr. Wellsby. I'm very pleased and encouraged to hear so much support across the chamber. However, I do find some of the comments quite hypocritical, and I just hope that after this evening's debate that people can go and look themselves in the mirror and make a positive change. Thank you, Mr. Wellsby.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have the motion as it's been set out. Again, with the consent of the meeting, if I can just make a very quick proposal. So item 4 is that the Executive Director for Legal and Democratic Services brings back a charter to the next meeting of the full council. And we will give our very best efforts to doing that. But can I just say that there's a huge workload on that person around the organisation of the elections and so on. And I'm very aware that a number of you as councillors will be taking a lot of energy into that too. So if we could say at the earliest possible, and we will give it our very best efforts to make it a very early meeting of the council, but it may not be the first meeting of the council that we bring the charter back to. I think it's important that we get this right, given the strength of feeling, rather than that we do it quickly. If we have your consent, just to work with the party leaders over a period of time, whatever period of time it takes to get this right, rather than do it quickly, that I think would be the better thing to do, given the strength of feelings I've heard tonight. Can I ask if I have your consent to operate on that basis? If you disagree with that, then please indicate. Thank you very much. It's very much appreciated that you give us the time to do that, and I think we'll end up with a better result in any case in terms of the charter that is produced if we give it sufficient thought. With that, Madam Mayor, it is my belief, on the basis of all the contributions I've heard, that all councillors would wish to support the motion. If any councillor's intentions or wishes is misunderstood by me, then would that councillor please indicate? I have no indications, Madam Mayor. On that basis, all councillors present tonight will have their votes recorded in favour of the motion brought to us by Councillor Jenny Molyneux. Thank you, Madam Mayor. You can move to item 8.
Item 8, franchise bus model. Councillor Nordad Aziz and seconded by Councillor Stuart Heaves.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Mr. Welby. Can I propose the motion as outlined?
Thank you. Is that motion seconded, please?
I hope Stuart's
formally seconded, with the reserving the right to speak.
Buses play a vital role. We all have a memory, whether you've taken one to work, school or college. Over the past decade, bus services have declined significantly, with over 3,000 routes vanishing. Just over a year ago, pre-COVID, it seems like it's a lifetime ago, but it's just over a year. I, along with many other councillors in this chamber, wrote to Transdev to object to the potential withdrawal of the X41. I spoke to the chief executive of Transdev, and for me, during our conversations, and in my opinion, whenever we interacted on the X41 challenge, all it came down to was profitability. Not the impact on the town, not the impact on passengers, and for me, forgetting that the bus was a public service. But just to put it into context, the bus company that runs the X41 from its East Lancashire business, based on its last submitted accounts, had a profit of 1.7 million after tax, a margin of 15.5%. That is a significant margin for whatever type of business you're in. The current system of deregulation allows bus companies to cherry pick the profitable routes and abandoning and leaving the challenging routes, or under investing in these routes, leading to eventual withdrawal or being solely reliant on public subsidies. So the current system has shown itself that it does not work. 11 years of conservative slogans like Northern Powerhouse, levelling up, the latest iteration, it has come to Labour to drive change, highlighting what Labour can do when it's in charge. Greater Manchester Mayor Andy Burnham, or as he should be known, the King of the North, given his performance in speaking up against the government during this coronavirus, has today announced that the Greater Manchester buses will be franchised in a historic move. The region will take over the control of the bus network in a move that will change thousands of customers' lives after Andy Burnham approved the recommendation from the 9 council leaders. It means Greater Manchester will become the first place outside London to have a regulated bus service system since the 1980s. Buses on the network will still be run by the private companies, but they no longer have the ability to cherry pick the profitable routes. But Greater Manchester Combined Authority will have control over the fares, timetable and routing, as well as having the ability to integrate ticketing across the buses, trains and trams. So in effect, it doesn't allow bus companies to hold local authorities to hostage by saying withdrawing routes unless they get a subsidy, and just cherry picking the profitable routes. I acknowledge the Conservative government this week has announced a raft of measures to improve the inverted commas, the country's bus infrastructure, including additional funding for rural services. But for me, it's simply a sticking plaster, and it doesn't go further enough. So I challenge the Highways Authority and the Transport Authority, as well as the government. If it can be implemented in Greater Manchester, why can't we look at it rolling it out in Hyndburn and Lancashire? And for me, if we are serious about levelling up, this is something we should consider, because East Lancashire, Hyndburn and Lancashire are reliant on buses, especially our rural communities. But the Conservative government's actions over the past few months highlight it is not interested in levelling up, given the reduction in the Transport for the North budget and the loss of 33 million for the smart travel funding, which was allowing all public transport vehicles to have contactless technology in the north. It was initially going to be rolled out next year, but now it's been delayed for the foreseeable future. That is why we need to keep on challenging the government to actually deliver for Lancashire, for Hyndburn, because ultimately we all come to this chamber to make a difference. And for me, one of this, the difference we can drive is through economic and social mobility, and that is making sure we have good transport links, whether that's buses or trains. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nordad. Can I move to Abdul Khan, please?
Thank you, David. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I couldn't agree more with Councillor Aziz. As a former bus driver employed by Hyndburn Borough Transport until they went private in late 1987, I had the pleasure of driving those distinctive red and blue buses right across Lancashire and further afield. The bus industry was booming. Full double-decker buses with people standing, and every 10-minute service to Aussie, Clayton, Ferngore, Honcourt and Blackburn. And then every 30-minute service to other neighbouring towns, providing easy link, connecting travel to anywhere in the country. Then came the idea of privatisation, and things went from bad to worse. I have seen the decline of a superb public service to what it is now. It shifted, privatisation shifted the focus from bus companies, from a public service transport to profit generating company. This has led to routes of connectivity being scrapped right through the borough. That's why we need to raise our voices and support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Abdul. Tim O'Kane, please.
Right, thank you, Madam Mayor. I had the honour 5 years ago of opening the bus station, and I made a speech when I did, and I addressed some of the criticisms which people were telling us. Oh, the buses won't be able to get round there. There's too many. I don't use a bus. There are all manner of things. It's in the wrong place. You know, we don't want it. Previously, they had a row of unconnected shelters, which we used. Since then, we've had 5 years in which everybody's saying, what an improvement. The only thing I get is, well, why didn't they do it sooner? You don't seem to realise the effect that buses have on the thing. The people who were criticising the bus station were almost inevitably non-bus users. But when you look at the, when I've been sat on the planning committee, you look at any new development and they always refer to improved travel links. If you want a dentist or places like that, even Accrington, Victoria, the reason that it was built where it was because it was on a bus route, because most people then travelled, you know, back in the 1940s, they travelled by public transport. And I could give another example, the bid for Wilson's playing field, you know, for the all the leisure industry money. For that, it's stipulated that it's a good venue because it's on a public bus route.
Tim, I have to ask you to conclude, if you would, please.
Very well, I shall conclude then. Right.
Thank you, Tim. Stuart Eaves, please.
I'll keep this short and sweet because I've a 10-hour night shift after this is finished. My attitude is, since the dark days of deregulation, where it became obvious that companies were going to go for profits rather than people, I think we need to get back into the ethos of looking after everyone, especially the vulnerable. I can't personally believe that anyone enjoys commuting to work, but people have to do it if they want career progression. And apart from that, it's mainly hitting the young and the old. So I would urge you to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Many thanks. Can I ask Andrew Clegg, please? Andrew, could you be brief so that we can also hear from Josh Allen? And that will then conclude the debate. Andrew, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, David. I'll be as brief as I can. And again, apologies for my IT issues with the camera. But again, levelling up, the figures don't lie. On average, between 2018 and 2019, the figures per head on transport spending in London was £903, and yet here in the Northwest, it was £412. It shows you the numbers don't lie. We're always forgotten about. They don't care. Let's just get these transport links sorted. Let's bring the power back to the Northwest and get our economy moving for the benefit of everyone.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
Josh, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and David Wellsby. It's more of a question, really, to be honest, to Councillor Aziz, because I'm not that clued up on this. To be honest, I've had a quick look over the week since we've had the motion and everything. As a Conservative, I find it hard to support such a motion simply because I don't believe in government control over private businesses. But I fully agree, our transport system is ridiculous. It's abysmal, essentially. It's not as good as countries such as like Amsterdam, for example, where you can catch a bus, train, metro, whatever you want straight away, as we all probably know, and are very efficient. I am a big supporter, to be honest, of public ownership, and rather the government of the day actually owning its own business in a sense that obviously competes against other private businesses. And that's a method I would much rather support. So I am quite torn on it, but as someone who doesn't actually know an awful lot about it, I'd much appreciate any more information as well on it after the meeting, obviously, if possible. Thank you.
Many thanks, Josh. And we can return now to Noda to sum up and perhaps to respond to your question, Josh.
I'll start off with Councillor Allen's question. Happy to take this offline. And for me, share what good practice is. One of the things I always find when people talk about privatisation and, the rail companies, a lot of the private rail companies are actually owned by different countries, public rail companies. So in essence, all you're doing is just passing your rail network to another sovereign nation's rail company to run. So, it just, for me, is a nonsensical argument. I'm going to sum up by using an example from 2012. This lady in question has now got dementia, and I met her daughter the other day. She's a resident of Great Harwood, and I was a newly elected councillor. And I was working in Manchester, and this resident, I bumped into her in the sandwich shop, and I said, I know you, you're from Great Harwood. She goes, yeah, my husband died 3 months ago, and I didn't know what to do. So this morning, I got on the bus using my bus pass for the over 65, and I've ended up in Manchester. I've had a great day out, and I've proven to my family I can actually survive without my husband, and I've got to Manchester. I've enjoyed myself. I'm going back. She's got dementia now, and one of the things she remembers when she sees my leaflet come through the door is I saw him in Manchester and he talked to me, and that's one of her memories. And for me, it's quite, that we've allowed this resident mobility to enjoy the thingy. So that's why we need to have strong bus networks. And if it means making sure we've got a regulated network in Lancashire, we must push for that. And this goes beyond political divide, whether you believe in free market economics. It comes down to the premise of a basic public service empowering our residents in Hyndburn. So that's why I hope you support it.
Thank you, Norad. So we have a motion that is moved and seconded, and we move to the vote. On the basis of the views that I've heard, I believe that councillors across all parties and the independent would support this motion. If I've misunderstood your intentions or wishes, please indicate. Thank you, Madam Mayor. There are no indications. On that basis, it will be recorded that all members present tonight supported the motion. Madam Mayor, earlier we heard Nordad move the third motion, and if I can just give councillors the chance to return to the third motion in their papers, which was concerning the Hyndburn train routes restriction to the Castleford corridor congestion. We did ask for a seconder, and I hope Kate Walsh is there ready with her finger on the button, because I'm going to ask once again, do we have a seconder for the third motion as presented by Councillor Nordad Aziz?
Yes, I'm sorry,
Kate.
I'm here. Sorry, I couldn't hear anything before when it was first called. We were having it's been a bit like the film Signs tonight, hasn't it? Where that horrible clicking noise the whole way through, and I just couldn't hear anything. I didn't hear it, so I'm really sorry.
Kate, you still haven't answered the question. Would you wish to second the motion?
Yes, I do second the motion. Thank you.
I thought you might. Thank you very much. So we have a motion that's moved and seconded. Nordad, would you like to speak to your motion, please?
Yep. Obviously, for me, my biggest passion, and it's something obviously I think I drive my family mad, is infrastructure. If I could literally talk about infrastructure all day, I would happily discuss the merits of how infrastructure can completely change an area. And for me, whenever I've talked about getting strong economic links to economic centres like Leeds, like Manchester, there's always an obstacle. And for me, the biggest challenge for rail improvements in the north is the Castleford corridor. And just for members that aren't aware what the Castleford corridor is, it's the in the centre of Manchester. It's the line from Deansgate station to Manchester Piccadilly via Manchester Oxford Road. So, and the challenge is that piece of track is congested beyond belief, and it's only 2 track, and each train that goes on it then becomes in a taxi rank system that has to follow the train in front through until it gets to the next station at Manchester Piccadilly or at Deansgate, and that creates a backlog, a jam. That's why there's no trains from East Lancashire that go on to the airport, because there is no capacity. So if we want, aspiration, like we obviously, me and Councillor Kate Walsh are very passionate about getting the Rishton link to Manchester, and then also a link from East Lancashire to the airport. We need to request government to offer a solution to this piece of track, because obviously we've got the Ordsall curve which connects Manchester Victoria station to Manchester Piccadilly, but that's not at full capacity because again of this piece of track between Deansgate and Manchester Piccadilly. And it's not a project overnight that's going to be a solution. It's one of those that's long term. If we can get a solution to that, that'll open the whole rail network. Because currently, no freight can go through Manchester city centre from west to east. You've got the so basically the Port of Liverpool and the Trafford freight terminal have to go west and south or west and north to go east, because it cannot go through Manchester city centre because of the congestion. That's why we need to be pushing central government to actually offer a solution, because ultimately we've got aspirations in East Lancashire to potentially have a freight terminal here, because to really boost our strong manufacturing base. Because if we can make sure our goods manufactured here in Hyndburn, manufactured in East Lancashire, can get to market more efficiently, it'll make sure we retain our strong manufacturing base. But we can only do that by making sure we offer a solution to the Castleford corridor. That's why I think tonight's not going to offer a solution, but it'll continue to put pressure on the government to work with Network Rail, to work with Transport for North to deliver a solution to the Castlefield corridor. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nordad. Do we have any speakers? I know that Kate's reserved the right to speak, but are there any other speakers? Andrew Clegg, please.
Hi, yes. Again, this is just yet another example of how the northern lines are being left behind. If you look at the cost of Crossrail, it's £19 billion. I mean, I'm looking and I can't find any prices as to what this upgrade will cost. It's just a few miles of track through the centre of Manchester. Yes, it'll be a big infrastructure change, but just remember how much money is being spent on the trains down in London. This is small fry. This is nothing. It's pocket change to Network Rail. This, if they really put the minds to it. And again, this doesn't just impact Manchester. It impacts everyone in the northwest, including passengers, including freight, including everything that we rely on. And yeah, I'll be fully supporting this because yet again, we're getting left behind. We're getting forgotten about. We're getting promises. We're getting, all these consultancies, all these feasibility studies. It doesn't get any more trains on the rails. It doesn't get any more passengers through the stations. So let's get onto these guys. Let's get on to them. Let's say, look, actions are great. Let's forget all the words. Let's just get it done.
Thank you. Melissa Fisher, please.
Thank you, Mr. Wellesby. Yeah, I fully support this motion, and we've spoken a lot tonight about time. So I was reading an interesting quote earlier, and I'd just like to quickly read it out. We kill time, we save time, we rob and we get robbed of time. We lose time and we have all the time in the world, but no one, even us, is powerful enough to stop the march of time or slow it down. So, councillors, across party, the time is now. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Madam Mayor, we have no further indications, so I'll check with Kate. Kate, would you like to exercise your reserved right to speak?
Yes, thank you. I wanted to speak quite briefly. I mean, I think that everyone knows that Councillor Aziz is very passionate about trains, and I think if we all went to his house, he might have a big mural of a train on his wall. But I wanted to tell you why I'm passionate about our public transport systems and why I'm passionate about the North. Now, my husband often refers to me as Sansa Stark, the Queen of the North, because I'm always going on about how we need improvements, and we need so much more here than what we are getting now. And public transport is one of them things. As an example of that, I went to an air pollution meeting recently, and those down south were speaking about burning stoves in the house and fireplaces, and we're a million years from that because we have so many cars on our road, because our transport system is just not up to scratch, and we really need to focus on decarbonisation. And that's why I'm passionate about trains, and that's why I'm passionate about buses and other sources of public transport, because we need cars off the road and we need to be focusing on the green agenda. So that's why I'm really happy to second this motion. So thank you.
Thank you.
Many thanks, Kate. So, Nordad, would you like to sum up?
I think it's been a long meeting, so I'm not going to make a long speech. But I think, again, this adds just a little bit of, challenge and, input into the national consensus around transport infrastructure for the North. And I think we need to beat the drum, whether it's Skipton to Corn, the Rishton to Manchester train link, the M65 link to the A1 via the Leeds Bradford International, the M66 expansion to Manchester, better buses. This is just another string to, the ever-growing guitar that we need to play in local government to drive our area forward. Because ultimately, for me, and I'll reiterate, if we've got good infrastructure links, we can retain our brightest. If we retain our brightest, we'll have better industries. If we have better industry, the prospects of other communities to succeed suddenly grows exponentially. Like I was reading today, children in this borough are amongst the most deprived in the country. We need something that is going to change the whole area's focus. And for me, that is making sure we've got good infrastructure links to our economic centres. If we've got good infrastructure links, our manufacturing base, our manufacturing heartland can continue to thrive. That's why, I'm up for re-election this time. I might not be here. So for me, whether I'm here or not, we need to continue to drive this agenda, because ultimately, if we don't, the government is never going to change and never going to invest in our area. That's why we need to continually speak up for projects like this and the other one I've spoken about today. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nordad. I have not heard any opposition to the motion, so with your leave, I'd propose that I believe that all councillors support the motion. If I've misunderstood your wishes or intentions, will you please indicate? Madam Mayor, we have no indications, and therefore it will be recorded that all councillors present supported Nordad's motion. Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Well, that concludes tonight's business. Before we go, I'd just like again to say thank you to Jean Battle for all her services as she's retiring at this time. The next meeting of the council is the annual general meeting on the 20th of May, shortly after the local election. Please keep going, keep safe, keep supporting each other, and keep following the COVID rules until they are relaxed. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And that normally would be the last word. But as you say, Jean has been on a long time, so long, in fact, that she remembers me as a young man. And I wonder whether, Jean, you would just do us the honour of giving us a countdown from 5, and we'll switch off the light, the live feed for the last time. Yeah. Over to you, Jean.
Just quickly, David started as a lowly policy officer.
Oh, don't do that. Come on, just count down.
And then I got on the council, so that's how long I've known him. Right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bye.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, all.
Bye.
Bye.